Welcome, everyone, to the Planning and Development Committee meeting. It's Monday, December 8th, 2014. It is 7:36, and we have a quorum tonight. First item on the agenda is approval of the regular meeting minutes of November 24th. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
I had a correction, Madam Chair.
All righty.
Give me a second. I'm sorry. Looking. Yes, if I may, it's page 387 of the packet, and it was agenda item that begins P3. It was the Domino's restaurant. The minutes, the draft reflects that the committee voted 6-0 with Chair Fiske opposed, so that would really be a 6-1 vote.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Any other changes, corrections? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes as amended?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. The first item for consideration is P1. It's Resolution 93R14, designating the portion of Garrett Place east of Sheridan Road to the cul-de-sac with the honorary street name sign Shakespeare Garden Founders Way. The Citizens Advisory Committee on Public Place Names recommends approval of Resolution 93R14, and that is for action.
Second.
And I have a reference to send this to the city manager. I've talked to the committee that's here tonight, and we think it's a good time to follow the lead that was set forward by the WCTU and the Women's Club to designate that portion of Chicago Avenue with a permanent sign. A honorary street name sign is just for 10 years, and this would be a permanent sign. Mr. City Manager, could you just address that, please?
Madam Chair, members of the Council Committee, good evening. As Alderman Fiske had mentioned, the sign that's being requested, the street name sign, is a relatively temporary sign versus a permanent marker. The Council has talked about more permanent historical markers. Over the past, we had the Emerson Street Y sign, I think, was our first venture into that. I think there's been some interest in doing something more substantial, more permanent. In talking with the committee from the Garden this evening with Chair Fiske, clearly the desire is to have something more permanent that is a directional sign from Sheridan Road to direct people to the Garden. So the committee is the committee representing the Garden is prepared to have us work a little bit further on a directional sign versus the honorary street name. So, Madam Chair, if you'd like to have the item referred back to me to work with that group, I'm happy to do that. If you'd like to leave the item in committee until such time we come back, whatever the committee's pleasure.
Okay, thank you very much. Alderman Grover, then Alderman Tendon, then Alderman Holmes.
Oh, I did not understand that the Evanston Garden Club was looking as an either-or on this option. I understood that they were still looking for it to be called Shakespeare Garden Founders Way with perhaps additional directional signs, but I don't think they've withdrawn their application for the honorary sign.
I will let them speak. I think the reason that the discussion occurred earlier this evening was some lack of clarity over the ordinance dealing with honorary street names compared to the practice, and I think the practice has veered a little bit from the language of the ordinance. So Chair Fiske, I think, is trying to negotiate between what the language in the ordinance is versus what practice is versus what the group is looking actually to accomplish. So their representatives are here; they can speak for themselves.
And then I'll reference actually for us to re-examine the resolution and the policy and the practice of honorary street naming, but I hope we can proceed with this application tonight anyway.
That's the committee's.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, who's Alderman Tendon and then Alderman Holmes?
I was going to express some of the same concerns that Alderman Grover did, but directional signage to me sounds kind of lame. I think that if we are going to honor someone or something, it should be a nice sign that is truly honorary.
Well, I didn't know what was, other than what was in the packet, but I was thinking that when I heard the directional, that's really different than an honorary sign, and I wouldn't know why we wouldn't have both. I mean, I would think you would want to have the street naming, and then you would have a directional sign. That would be, to me, the simpler way to do it, and you'd end up having both. And I know that it says 10 years, but I know in my ward there's some that have been up there much, much longer than that. So unless somebody requests them to come down, I don't think they really come down. So if that's a concern.
Alderman Rainey, and then we'll go to citizen comment, please.
Well, I feel like we're talking about people in front of them, and I would like to hear
Sure.
from the supporters of the whatever sign they're looking. Tell us what you're looking for. That's all I want to know.
Oh.
I want to hear from you. Yes, if it's all right with the committee.
Thanks, Alderman Glover and Alderman Tandem and Alderman Holmes and Alderman Rainey and, of course, Alderman Fiske. My name is Trish Bauer, and I'm president this 2 years of the Garden Club of Evanston. 100 years ago, in 1915, both the Garden Club of Evanston was founded by a group of women. The organizational meeting held in the home of Mrs. Burnham. And the garden was, Shakespeare Garden was begun that same time, designed by Jens Jensen. So it is an amazingly historic garden. It has been there for 100 years. And it was the first garden in the country named to the National Registry of Historic Places. I mean, that is a real coup for the city of Evanston. The garden is a tourist destination in Evanston. The other museums in town, the three museums in town and the North Shore Tourism Board have Shakespeare Garden brochures, and they direct people here. The Garden Club of Evanston, the Garden Club of America, of which we are one of 6 North Shore clubs, 200 clubs across the country, sends visiting garden tours to Shakespeare Garden every year. Northwestern University students are literally 100% of the time using Shakespeare Garden as a respite. It's a quiet place for reflection in the middle of a very busy urban area. The garden hosts 20 or more weddings and photo shoots every year. It is heavily used. The only problem is, if you're a newcomer to the city, and we hope more and more come to visit the garden, as you're driving either north or south on Sheridan Road, there is no signage. You cannot see it. And if we tell people, look for the spires, well, you have Seabury, former theological seminary, on the west side of the street, and Garrett on the east side of the street. And where do you turn? And oh my gosh, where am I going to? Oh, I just can't find it. I'll go back home. So as this is the 100th year anniversary of this fantastic garden, which, by the way, is also probably the best, if not one of the best, examples of collaboration between Northwestern University, which allots the land to us, and a local citizens group. The members of the Garden Club of Evanston, myself included, every year we work at least 5, each one of us, 5 2-hour shifts in the garden. We weed, we pull, we plant, we water, we worry, we clean up debris. It's our garden. We don't have professional people doing it. It is our garden. Ladies who live right next door to you are out there weeding and pulling and planting and putting in bulbs and taking off the beetles every day in that garden. It is just a fabulous place, and we think we would very much, echoing Alderman Holmes' comments, we would very much want to have the honorary street name to honor the legacy of these women beginning 100 years ago, coming down through the years, hopefully for another 100, 200, 300 years, forever. It is just a fabulous garden, and this would be an honor that the garden is well deserved. We have some pictures of the garden. I hope everyone has been to the garden, but if you haven't, we have some beautiful pictures that one of our members has taken. And Alderman Fiske had a fabulous idea right before the meeting, and that's why we didn't know, Alderman Holmes and Tandem and Grover, we didn't know until 5 minutes ago that there was the possibility to have a very nice a sign that would indicate not just our garden, but the Women's Christian Temperance Union, perhaps the History Center, several historic areas in the city. And the city doesn't have a whole lot of dough to pay for those, obviously. There would be a lot done, but the honorary street sign is it would be such an honor for the Garden Club and the Shakespeare Garden to have this done. Does anyone have any questions or anything you'd like to ask us about the garden? And it's free. Anyone can go to the garden, visit the garden. It is open 24/7. Just don't cut anything.
Yeah, right. It's gorgeous.
You can pick up some debris if you want, but please don't cut anything, unless you ask us.
Clean 'em out.
Does anyone on the committee have any questions?
Well, I just think you can have both. I just think we can do both because we're talking about signage anyway. We're going to be doing signage all over the city. So, I mean, we're talking about historic signage. We've been talking about that for years and doing that all over the city to make sure that people do know. So I don't know why we couldn't have both.
Okay, Alderman Rainey?
Well, I think we should approve the public place naming of the Shakespeare Gardens, the honorary sign, and then make a reference to the wayfinding
Group.
I don't know, consultant, wherever we are on that.
Yeah, the historical
whatever,
marker,
to
yeah.
get markers for the various places. And, I mean, there's just no reason why we couldn't do that.
Okay.
Okay,
Is there a second?
Second.
Carlos Moody, are you here?
Well,
Carlos? We're still doing
You have a light.
comment. Right. Could we just finish with the citizen comment first?
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes,
You mentioned the 100-year anniversary. Is that next year, 2015?
2015.
2015.
And are you planning a particular event at this time that would be appropriate to have a sign revealed?
Yes, in fact, we have been meeting with Northwestern and with Garrett Seminary, and we have planned a rededication to honor, and in fact, everyone in Evanston would be invited, city council, of course, and city officials, to a soiree in Shakespeare Garden on June 14th. We're also planning a series. We have made are making a series of traveling posters that all during 2015 will be available. Well, we're going to take them to City Hall here, and the library, and the History Center, and any other group that asks to have them. We have a July date scheduled for horticultural information sessions, as well as the use of our traveling posters at the Evanston Farmers Market. We are producing a water symposium on the grounds of on the Northwestern campus in October, which Mr. Cubbage has very generously given us free space at Northwestern to do that, and that is open free of charge to the public. We are having in September a program at Evanston Township High School, an open house for the tree project. We have donated more than $5,000 in tree signs alone and reforestation to the grounds of the high school, which grounds had been, the trees had been just neglected for a little bit. We've also do conservation projects at the high school, and we have redone 2 of their 5 plaza areas as well, courtyards. So yeah, we have events going through free to the public almost every single month during 2015. So it is our whole centennial year.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Carlos Moody is signed up to speak. Okay, and then Lucille Pruda, are you here? Oh, okay. Did you want to speak to that, or just here? Okay, okay. Well, I have a question for the city manager, because our ordinance only apparently allows for honorary street names for living persons. And so, and that had been discussed at Human Services. Do we refer back to Human Services? Do we change the ordinance first, or do we just vote on this? How does this?
I think there's been a past practice of the council when there are opportunities to make an exception that the ordinance has been adopted and move forward. We can make adjustments moving forward in the future to clarify that. I think the issue that has been discussed today was that there has been some past practice. I guess Mr. Munzer identified a couple of other groups or site places that had been honored with the street name, the Giordano Dance, off the top of my head, and a couple of others. So I think if the council, if this committee is comfortable recommending it to the full council, I would say go ahead and do that.
Okay.
We'll move forward if the full council gives its approval, and then we'll come back at a future meeting to talk, probably at the Rules Committee, to revisit this, and if we need to make some adjustments or reiterate that no, it is only for living persons and no exceptions, and that's a discussion
because
for a future
we had had a
council meeting.
fairly full discussion about this at Human Services, and it's fine with me whatever way the committee wants to go. If we do go that way, I guess I would like to recognize the Second Baptist Church, who we told for their anniversary it had to be a living person, and Bookman's Alley as well. So I've been following what was in the ordinance and what we had discussed at Human Services. But if this is the direction that the committee wants to go, normally this discussion is at Human Services. So tell me how we're going to negotiate that. Does it go back to
I
Human
believe I
Services?
already
or do
made the
that?
Well,
referral
the Baptist
to discuss
Church,
the.
et cetera, are not on our agenda tonight.
No, but I'm making a reference
I
to
think
that.
It's a reference. That's
Well, I don't want people to feel badly that they've been told one thing at a previous communication based on what the ordinance says, and then we're giving it to someone else. I want it to be consistent. Yeah, that's fine.
Some of us
I-
went on our toes that night.
Well, it's not, I think we were all on our toes. I know I was on my toes that night. And the difference is that, I do, this is a garden club, and I think the ladies sitting in front of me are living, so they look pretty active to me. So if we're talking about a garden club, then they're here. Maybe if the exception would be if you just wanted Founder's Way, that's different, but if it's the Shakespeare Gardens Way, I see no issue at all.
Okay.
Because they're all living. Otherwise, they couldn't take care of the garden, right? Okay. So, I mean, that to me, that is the difference between, and if I remember correctly, there were actual people that wanted to, and the exception with the dance studio, we did an exception there, but it wasn't to name it after him, it was to name it the studio, which his daughter was running. So that we were able to get around it like that. And the Second Baptist wanted it named after a person, and that was the difference. That's why we couldn't do that one, if I remember correctly, Judy.
I think it was for the church. Yeah. Okay.
And Madam Chair, members of the committee, we'll be happy. That was the reference to rules. It is a Human Services.
Human
where we-
Services, yeah.
Okay, so we'll bring that at a future meeting in Human Services.
Okay, great. Thank you. So what do we do tonight? We can vote on this tonight then, right?
To refer to the full council.
Okay. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okey doke. The second item for consideration tonight is P2. It's Resolution 90R14, authorizing a memorandum of understanding with the Regional Transportation Authority, RTA, for a transit-oriented development parking regulations update. City staff recommends that the City Council adopt Resolution 90R14, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a memorandum of understanding with the RTA to allow the RTA to provide staff and/or consultant services to examine the parking regulations in Metra and CTA transit-served areas. There will be no cost incurred by the city for these services, and that is for action. Do I have a motion?
Move it to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All righty. So PD1 is the presentation on the implementation of the West Evanston Plan. In May 2007, the City Council adopted the West Evanston Master Plan, which covered an area of primarily vacant or underutilized industrial properties, the former Mayfair Railroad right-of-way and embankment, and the adjacent Church Dodge Commercial District. Staff will provide a presentation on the steps taken, which include revising the zoning ordinance, making streetscape improvements, and encouraging new businesses and housing development. It's for discussion.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Lori Pearson, the Planning and Zoning Administrator. I am joined tonight by Megan Jones, Economic Development Coordinator. We will briefly give you an update on the implementation steps that we have taken, we as the city, of course, have taken on the West Evanston plans. I'm going to start quickly with a brief review of the history of planning efforts in the area, touch on the guiding principles in the plans, report on the implementation that has been done to date. Then, to ensure that plans aren't kept on the shelf, that we're continuing to implement them, we're going to then seek direction on next steps. So, history lesson, just quickly, 2005, the TIF was created in West Evanston, divided the area into 5 sub-areas. The following year, the city hired consultants to work on really just 2 different plans covering 3 sub-areas. So sub-areas 1 and 2 were planned together. Sub-area 3 was its separate plan. That year, a number of stakeholder and community meetings were conducted. The following year, the plans were adopted. And then in 2009, the zoning ordinance was amended to implement some of those recommendations in the plan, to codify that. So just quickly, and I know you can't see the details, so I'm going to run through generally where the sub-areas are. Up at the top, sub-area 1, Simpson to Emerson. Sub-area 2, Emerson to Church. Sub-area 3, Church, about Church, to Greenwood, including the Church and Dodge intersection. Sub-area 4 is down here in the south, which is north of Greenleaf, between the former railroad right-of-way and Dodge. And then sub-area 5 is this large area here, generally between Greenwood to Greenleaf west of the railroad. So I'm going to talk about the first, the first 2 sub-areas. Thank you. And then Megan's going to cover sub-areas 3 through 5. Okay, sub-area 1, and again, like I said, sub-areas 1 and 2 were planned together, so these guiding principles appear in both. But to go over those just briefly, the guiding principles in these 2 sub-areas were to reconnect the community. The focus really there was to extend the street grid, the street network, maintain green character by providing parks and wide parkways with street trees, increase walkability by building walkable blocks, provide life cycle housing with a variety of housing, with affordable housing, and finally, for neighborhood scale, commercial, to create those commercial nodes. Just a conceptual sketch from the plan. But more importantly, I wanted to note the work that's been done to date in this sub-area, most notably Emerson Square. The townhouses and the apartments both contribute in so many ways to the guiding principles. Obviously, reconnecting the community by extending Ashland Avenue, maintaining the green character. There's park as well as wide parkways. Walkability also increased there, in part because of the extending of Ashland and providing those parkways. Life cycle housing, and obvious here, affordable housing. And that's also provided by a lot of the neighborhood stabilization program construction that was done, not necessarily in the sub-area, but in the general area. And finally, a photo here, Frio Gelato, also just outside the area, technically, but really helps to provide that neighborhood commercial service that's needed. Moving on to sub-area 2, as I said, the same principles there. Here's a conceptual sketch from the plan and a number of items that have been done to date in that sub-area. Bike paths, of course, contributing to reconnecting the community. The Church Street Village townhomes, maintaining the green character. You can see that the parkways are there with the street trees, and also adding to the variety of housing types. And I should point out, Strange Lofts is actually in sub-area 3. Sorry about that, but that is a good segue to Megan's presentation.
All right, good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Again, I'm Megan Jones, I'm Economic Development Coordinator. I'll dive right into sub-area 3. If you recall, the sub-area 3 covers the area roughly between Dodge Avenue and the former Mayfair Railroad line, with additional areas that go west along Church Street and west of Dodge at Greenwood. Some of the guiding principles for this particular area, as you see, are special attention to the Church and Dodge intersection and streetscapes, the former Mayfair Railroad embankment, the triangular area between the embankment and Dodge, the area between Dodge and Brown Avenues and Lake and Greenwood Streets, and with regards to new construction and any renovations to existing buildings, attention to the building architecture and sustainable design and greening. And there's a conceptual sketch of the area. Some of the work to date includes the extension of that bike path along Church Street with the widening of the sidewalk that increases walkability and improves the look of the streetscape in that area. We've also done an 1817 Church Street. Work continues on the contractors cooperative building there. Going further down, we've actually done some capacity building. There's a group of businesses, some of which were part of the former Church Merchants Association that reformed to create the Central Evanston Business Association. Now, this is a group of businesses that are at the Church and Dodge intersection, as well as some of the other commercial nodes that are within the 5th Ward. So the boundaries of that area are roughly between Green Bay and McCormick and Simpson Street and Church Street. So they are actually doing a lot of work and looking to improve both the aesthetics and opportunities for the Church and Dodge intersection, as well as the other commercial nodes within that area. So they're definitely looking to do a lot more work in the future. Going back to the Church and Dodge intersection, the convenience store that's at the corner of Church and Dodge, mainly 1901 Church Street, has seen a number of different owners. The current owners are actually 2nd Ward residents and have opened the C&W Market. We did a convenience store assessment some time back, and the store owners at that time ended up closing the store. The current owners took that assessment, took the recommendations to heart, and have opened and have done a great job so far in providing amenities to the community and the surrounding area. Of note, another item on this particular area, the city acquired 2 homes at Darrow, or on Darrow, rather, sorry, it's 1708 through 1710 Darrow Avenue. This essentially took 2 blighted homes. Those homes were demolished, and that creates enough available land for any possible redevelopment in the future. Moving along to sub-areas 4 and 5, the boundaries for which are roughly between Greenwood Street and Greenleaf, Dodge to Hartree, and with a strip that encompasses the west side of Dempster to McCormick. Now, while sub-areas 4 and 5 did not have plans created at the time that sub-areas 1 and 3 had plans created, there has actually been a great deal of activity within and just outside of the boundaries of these sub-areas. So mainly of note is the new Starbucks that opened at 1901 Dempster. Also, as you see at the bottom, the opening of the Erie Family Health Center, which is providing a wide variety of medical services for the Evanston community. We also, in line with the capacity building, there's a number of businesses in the West End Industrial and Manufacturing District that created a business association, and they're creating a capacity of businesses that are paying a lot of attention to both the aesthetics of that area and just making sure that whatever amenities or resources are needed for the businesses there that are actually provided. And this group was actually very instrumental in the installation of a sidewalk at both Pittner Street and Dempster Street, as you can see on the left-hand side there. Some of the other projects that are actually just outside of the boundaries of these sub-areas include the development and establishment of the Dempster Dodge TIF, which actually encompasses Evanston Plaza, and also the expansion of the Hartwood Center, which is just east of Dodge on Dempster, and actually provides a great new meeting space for the area and has allowed that particular center to expand its capacity. It's pretty much doubled its capacity and serves significantly more patients in that particular building. And also of note, I think with all of the improvements that were happening in that particular area, Burger King decided to upgrade its facility so it kind of fit in. Now, moving forward, and with the direction of the committee, there are definitely some things that we are looking to accomplish in the future. This lists a few of those things here, one of which being establishing actual guiding principles and design plan for sub-areas 4 and 5, upgrading the Walgreens that is at the intersection of Green Bay Road and Simpson, continuing with the Green Bay Road Emerson Ridge reconfiguration, further development of the Church and Dodge intersection, which includes the building of the YRU's new facility, which is not due to be completed until 2016. reactivating the 1823 Church Street building, as well as pushing to do some more facade improvements to the existing buildings at that particular intersection. And also, further along on Dempster Street, we are as well looking to do some more facade improvements along that stretch that is both inside and just outside of these sub areas, as well as, of course, moving forward with Evanston Plaza revitalization. So if there's any other direction that the committee can offer, that would be greatly appreciated.
Any comments from the committee, questions? Alderman Holmes?
No, I don't. My light's not on.
I'm sorry. Alderman Grover?
It's Alderman
Yeah,
Grover.
we've been doing this together for about 5 years, and I know in the beginning, I think the West End was part of our early work, and it's just really, really great to see. You put it all together, and good, positive stuff is happening, just as we kind of hope to be putting in motion on the west side. And it is just a step at a time. That's the frustrating part. You want to wave a magic wand and make it all happen at once, but it's a step at a time. Got to be patient with this process.
No, my light's not.
Can we take Alderman Braithwaite first? He sort of waved.
I can be patient.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the
He
committee.
didn't have a light.
That's right. That's right. And unfortunately, I don't sit on this committee. I want to first say a couple of things, which is thank you very much to staff for the presentation. Part of this was on a referral that was made a few meetings ago. And so in sitting with the city manager, helping to understand some of the history with how the 2007 plan was created, one of the things that he identified that I want to be careful of is not to throw this back in the Plan Commission and go down this path of long meetings to address what we feel are some really simple issues. And so, again, I think our city staff has done an excellent job helping to work with the businesses that have been in that subsection 4 and 5. I think the things that they've identified and is consistent with what the city manager recommended is that we meaning the business associations, the two that are in that area along with the residents, need to come up with our list of priorities and focus on those priorities and line them up with where the budget dollars are. So again, thank you all for the wonderful work, and I think moving forward we'll continue to pay attention to, with all the activity that's going on, the improvements to the streets, the landscaping standards, and also signage in that area as well as the facade. So thank you.
Alderman Holmes?
Yes, I was simply going to say thank you to the staff as well. The progress has been slow but steady. We have not had the opportunities that you would have like at a Dempster Dodge where, you have all the fast foods, that kind of thing, and it's been difficult. But we've been able to hang in there, and I'm really excited about the prospects now with the 1823 church. That we won't have any vacancies in buildings in that area on the north side of Church, and until we get YOU built in the 1900 block, and then we will complete. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the TIF allowed us to go all the way to McCormick, I believe, in terms of streetscape. If you go back and look at your map, I'm pretty sure I'm right. So we do have more work to be done there. And I'm just really appreciative of all of the help and looking at the different possibilities of looking at funding, things that we can do to show the residents in that area that we're not forgotten anymore. And I say that because I've said it since 2005. Nothing had been done in that area for 50 years, and so it's taken a long time to get it up, but we are moving, and I'm very proud of where we are right now.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Munzer, are there any communications for us?
There are not, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Then could I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you very much. City Council will begin in 10 minutes at 8:20.